Welcome to Tell the Damn Story, the show that explores the many ways to navigate the successes and failures that aspiring and struggling writers face to make your journey that much easier.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Tell the Damn Story. This is the show that talks about our trials and tribulations as writers to make your journey smoother. And today, this guy and this guy aren't going to be talking so much about our stuff, but two very popular shows / games, comics that have created almost a very identical controversy. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Alex Simmons. He is a writer of all things, Constitution, the Bible. Wait a minute, might be a little off there. But he's creator of Blackjack. He's written for a ton of people and sage and respected writer. I may be sage, but a little less respected. My voice is getting out there. Yes, I'm a hybrid author. That is, I am perhaps the oldest emerging author in the world. So between the two of us, we have a wide range of experience to help you through some of the challenges you might be having. And today, we're going to evoke the legendary Walking Dead and The Last of Us to ask the question, to explore the question of what creator owes audience. And as creators yourselves, you have a stake in this conversation.
Absolutely.
So stick around, and if you get all the way to the end, we're going to talk about
coming to your house,
you might owe
dinner for you. Yes.
Your characters. Yes. And Alex is going to cook dinner. Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen,
let's set it up.
Alex, I'm so sorry, everybody. I don't have the episode number, but if you scroll through all our previous episodes, of which we have many, you'll find Walking Dead and the question we're going to talk about today. It happened in The Walking Dead in the comic, was very creative, controversial, and then happened in the show. Again, controversial. Matter of fact, lost a lot of the audience as a result. Here we are, last Sunday night, season 2, episode 2 of The Last of Us. Almost the same exact situation happened. Different character, all that sort of stuff. Audiences who had played the game The Last of Us, just like people who had read the comic The Walking Dead, knew what was coming. Just didn't know exactly when it was coming. And there is a bit of controversy again. And what we're talking about is very popular characters being killed off. And our question today is, what do the creators owe the audience? Okay, and what I want to give some foundation to the discussion. When we write stories, Alex, myself, any one of you, when we do that, we're inviting people to engage in the story. We're hoping the story we send out is embraced by somebody and the circle of communication is complete. We're asking you, hey, what we're saying is these characters we wrote about, they're worth your time. There's something in here for you. Now, sometimes an audience embraces that. The Walking Dead had a huge audience and then got a bigger audience with its television version. The Last of Us video game, huge audience that got significantly bigger when it came to Max as a TV show. So when you engage an audience to that degree, where they embrace and follow and support your vision as a creator, do you owe them anything? Now, the creator of Robert Kirkwood, I think, the creator of Walking Dead, he came down very firmly, and I know some of you are going to write in with the correction of his name, and I apologize, Robert. He stood very firm. He says, the creator owes the audience nothing. He owes the audience surprise. And depending on the genre, to fulfill the genre. Walking Dead, horror, he felt he owed them horrors. And the death of Glenn, and if you don't know that by now, that spoilers
Spoiler
from
alert.
10 years ago, the death of Glenn was most assuredly horrifying, both in the comic and then even worse in the show. But the thing that really pissed a lot of people off was that they didn't seem to think he deserved to go out that way. They would have been okay with the villain who killed Glenn still killing Glenn, but they wanted a little bit more of his character, the nobility of his character to shine through in that moment. And he went out like a sucker. It was foul. It was done for shock value. It was beneath the nobility of the character. Or that was the kind of conversation, and I did fall on that side. The second one, The Last of Us, anyone who played the game knew that Joel, this is again not a spoiler because it got spoiled last Monday by everybody, including Entertainment Weekly, who put the death in its headline. Come on. So anyway, if you played the game, you knew that this character was going to go. And players of the game had already had an argument that it wasn't a noble death. This is not always a heroic person, but there was a nobility to him and his dedication to what he was doing that they felt deserved more. And then Sunday night, that guy did not get an ounce more nobility. So it allows us an opportunity. Here at Tell the Damn Story, we're always looking for an opportunity to discuss story. Alex.
Yes, I'm here.
Do you believe that when you write stories, be it Blackjack or Archie or Scooby-Doo or Batman or many other characters you've written about, do you believe you have to uphold the characters as they've been presented?
Okay, that's a twofold question. And
Batman should always sound like Batman.
but I'm just
right?
saying some of the examples that you've mentioned are not characters that I own the IP of. So that's
Damn
one. So
Skippy.
I answer to the owners, the hierarchy on that in terms of what they will or will not allow things to do. But if you want to, for a brief second, talk about that, then we could say that there was, just to talk Batman for a moment, there was a little bit of a distress when Robin grew up and became Nightwing, because many people from the 40s on forward grew up with Dick Grayson as Robin, and that was it. Bruce and Dick were the Batman Robin team. A number of people were upset when Jason Todd was killed as Robin by the Joker and said that was a shock value scenario. And yeah, it certainly put Batman on trajectory for a year or more in the books in terms of him being very messed up over that traumatic scenario, that he wasn't there to save the kid, he blah, 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 and he became more violent and so forth and so on. So now, ratcheting back to me, I can definitely remember being distressed when certain characters that I like in a story go out in a way, either they go out because they're killed and I didn't want them to die, or they go out in a way that's not emotionally satisfying for me, not storytelling wise, but emotionally. It's two different things. As an audience member, having made some sort of emotional connection to this character, them dying in a certain way upsets me, or them dying, period, upsets me. The baby in Stephen King's Salem's Lot dying under the fangs of a vampire upset me. I didn't know the kid personally, but it distressed me that innocence went. But it needed to happen in order to move the story to the horrific level that it was aiming for. It needed to happen to advance the plot. It needed to happen to get that kind of reaction from the audience, the readers in this particular case. And I would say that in terms of the characters that I've created, you have to be aware that you're building a relationship between your audience and these characters. You work for that. You want them to or dislike certain characters. You plan that out. As I tell my students, we manipulate people's emotions. We do that very specifically. We want them to be excited about this or laugh at that or be horrified. And we put in elements to bring those things about. So I think it's gratifying and yes, distressing when an audience, the body of an audience, are upset to the point of walking away from us because of something that we did with the characters.
And
But
that becomes more how
well, yeah,
than why.
but see, that's the thing. We're looking at incidents, at least in terms of my POV of this, we're looking at incidents where, yeah, the how was dissatisfying. I suspect there were people who were upset that it happened, period. But then the how. But once again, it's the same argument in that you didn't want it to happen or you didn't want it to happen that way. And the author is in the position of saying, what do I need to have happen here that's going to have the impact I'm going for? And we may or may not agree with them, but they are in that position. That is a part of their job.
Right.
That's it. Now, once you buy into that world as a reader or as a viewer, you're going on that ride. It's like being in the roller coaster as you're going up to that first dip. There's a part of me for sure, and I know some other people go, why did I get into this thing? I'm not looking forward to that big dive. It's going to
Right.
my stomach's
But,
going to go up into my ears.
but let me use
But
that.
you do it. But hang on. All I want to say is, and then I'll certainly acquiesce to you, is that from my point of view, depending on the writer and depending on why they're doing what they do, it's going to have an effect. Whether we agree with it or not does definitely become the question.
Right. And it's an opportunity to have a conversation about
Right.
craft, right?
Mhm.
But to use your example of the roller coaster ride, yeah, when you're going up there, oh my God, and then you go down, right? And then there's an acceleration to the second one. And then if it's stopped at the peak of that second one, and there was a guy there who said, that's the end of the ride.
Yeah.
You got to walk back. It's a surprise. It's a twist that you didn't expect, but it's not what you signed on for.
This is true.
So what I'm suggesting, or what I'm saying is that here's my thesis. If a creator creates characters that succeed in inciting certain emotions in the audience and embarks on a certain arc that the audience agrees to go along with. If there's a character, oh, I like this character, and all of a sudden he spends 3 weeks raping pigs. That's
yeah.
What is this? Similarly, if the character is one of the cats just did something awful, so I don't know exactly what's going on in the other room. I apologize.
Okay.
If one of the characters becomes popular because, for example, with Glenn, he showed a resourcefulness and a willingness to do what needed to be done for the safety of others. Part of what annoyed people was that core part of his characterization was taken away, and he was with a group of people. Everybody had their hands tied behind their back and were on their knees, and he randomly got selected to get beat. His head got smashed to pieces by this big bat. This guy, pow, pow, pow. It had the effect of saying, wow, all that dedication and resourcefulness mean nothing. Now, the creator was like, that's part of the message of the piece, and we were left to deal with that. And a droppage in the readership and then a droppage in the viewership was part of the choice that a lot of people made. And that everyone has the right to that. But it's intriguing to say if he had gotten up off his knees and ran towards him or something like that, would you have had that same "I'm not looking at another issue" response? What is the opportunity? And for example, the more pressing example was last Sunday's Last of Us. It was episode 2 of season 2, and it introduced, where are they? They're at Jackson Hole, Wyoming. That's where they introduce how rough the winter is in that region. They introduced hordes of sleeping, I'm not sure what term they use. It's in effect zombies. It's more sort of fungi based. Okay. All right, whatever. And then you had this situation that came out of the end of the season 2 finale, where Joel saved Ellie, the centerpiece of the storytelling, by unleashing all of his resources. And the metaphor was, how far would a father go for a daughter? This is not his blood daughter, but that bond had created. And they opened this second season a year later, I think a year, maybe 5 years later, 5 years later. And Ellie is very much his daughter, his teenage daughter, with all of the rejection and almost unreasonable hatred towards dad. What I was talking about with a loyal viewer, someone who had played the game and enjoys the show, you may know him as Godson. He was saying, Dad, that this happened in the game. Players knew that it was coming. And I said, that's all and good. But what I'm talking about is opportunity. There was so much opportunity introduced in those first 2 episodes. The finale of last season, he killed anyone who was threatening this girl, including a doctor who was unarmed. It turns out in season 2, that doctor had a daughter, and she's out for revenge. Okay, we only see her in a few scenes before there's a confrontation, right, between her and Joel. And Joel had just saved her life. Think of the storytelling opportunities there for soul searching, for do I kill him, do I not kill him? Even if they extended, if they were stuck somewhere in the storm because there's a blizzard going on and these just thousands, like hordes of these running at full speed. So there was an opportunity for her to be, she was indeed, we saw her shocked by his heroism and him saving them. We didn't see her struggle with that. She never wavered from her hatred of this guy. So it robs us of an opportunity to root for both of them. That would elevate that moment of confrontation, that moment of death. If we had seen them having to deal together, work together to get out of the snow, to get out of the hordes.
I hear you.
Opportunity is what I'm talking about.
Yes, but
when and timing. When is it good? When is it the best moment to do this deed? Those are things that I think are worth talking about.
I agree with you, but I also feel that it has to do with one's perception of what kind of story I'm trying to tell, what is the message that I'm trying to deliver here, what are these characters like in my head, being the writer at that particular time, what are the executives? There's a lot of factors, but just in terms of storytelling, the way that you painted that, yes, that is a choice that could have been explored.
Right.
Absolutely. But what if that was not the goal? In which case,
in this
what
case,
happened.
In this case, they wanted to get on with the struggle between Ellie and whoever this other girl is. And they wanted that to be the focus.
Game? Did he die the same way in the game?
Yeah, and they complained about it being, if I can paraphrase, no, I think I can quote, crappy death. Okay. He deserved more than a crappy death. And I don't know, I never saw the game. What I'm told by a certain godson is that this was another crappy death, not that far away from whatever happened. There were different characters, there was more violence in the game and all that sort of stuff. But long and short of it, he deserved better. The fan base says. What I'm saying as a writer, and this is a show about how to tell the damn story and ways to tell the damn story. I think they missed an opportunity. Now, you're right. They may have noted the opportunity and said, screw that. We want to get to this story. But it gets back to my question about responsibility. If you have us go on the ride with Ellie and Joel, and you show us and get us invested in both, just like that roller coaster, you can't stop at the second hill and say, yeah, that's the whole ride. You have to, part of the challenge of writing is to bring the piece to or the character arc or each person's moments to the maximum you can for each character. And the thing that just makes me think there was such an opportunity for this discussion is that in both cases, the producers of the show versions had seen the controversies in the earlier versions. So you would think, oh, we have an opportunity.
But I think it's very also possible that they went, yeah, let's try that. Let's do that. This is what we're aiming for. Yeah, there's also the possibility they went, I don't care. Or
Robert was very much like that. Robert
Yeah.
was very much, yes, I wanted to double down. Yes, I wanted to.
But see, that's the creator's choice on that, or the creative's choice on that. I'm not saying that I agree with the choice. I'm saying they have that choice.
Yes, but
you've used the roller coaster metaphor twice now, and I would say
I just repeated it. It's the same.
Yeah. But here we go. It's for some people, yes, the metaphor of stopping it in the middle of the ride and saying walk back, I get that. But really, the other end of that is there are people that when the ride is over, come out complaining that it wasn't crazy enough. There are people that when the ride is over, come out complaining, oh God, I should never have gotten on that. Or why the hell why didn't you hold me when I was
I think
there's
you're
different
viewing me
reactions. Excuse me?
Alex, I think you're viewing me in the incorrect way here. I'm not coming at this as a fanboy complaining about The Walking Dead or complaining about The Last of Us. What I'm trying to do is use these examples to have a discussion with you about what writers who listen to us or who follow us should think about in their own pieces.
And
Both these examples, other people are getting paid for. None of the audience out here has an opportunity to rewrite those scenes or rebroadcast those, but everyone has their own story. So that's what the conversation I'm trying to have is, how do we know that we're serving our characters and their arcs in the best way we can? And you were right. You made the comment earlier about authorial intent. If the intent is to say, yes, even the most resourceful person in this world of Walking Dead, zombies, apocalypse, it won't matter. Everything that person did won't matter in a moment of, and the irony for both of these, by the way, is that living humans killed both of these people, not the monsters, right? They prove it, and the metaphor that.
And then who is the monster?
Right. Those, they excellently well, right? And you might say that in Walking the Dead would be a whole thing with the Legion story.
That's a new series. That's a spinoff. Walking the Dead.
But in Walking Dead, the person who killed him was the big bad. And they wanted to introduce him as horribly as possible to make his arc go. Okay, and he was, what a great actor. I forget his name, but those of you who know he was also the father of the two guys in Supernatural. He was that guy, I forget his name.
Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
What?
Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Fantastic, perfect casting. Was an a-hole from the first vowel. Every movement he made, every tone, perfect. And then you had to go, you went on that ride if you chose, if you could get past Glenn's death. Here, she's so destroyed, whoever this character is, by her father's death, that she kept this anger for 5 years. So my question here is, should we have seen some of that? Should we have seen some of the struggle? If you were in your consulting business, writing consulting business, if you had a writer who was working on a novel and you saw a scene, would you consider with that person, that client of yours, is the scene placed correctly? Does it do what you want it to do? For example, it seems to me that they wanted to create or set these two young ladies on a path against each other. But we know so much more about Ellie than I don't even know that other girl's name.
Was it Ellie is played by Bella Ramsey?
Yep.
Is it Dina?
Nope.
Okay, there's one. I'm looking at the cast here on online, and there's one actress who doesn't have her character name there. It's Caitlin Devers is the actress, but it doesn't say what part she played.
She's a young girl.
Yeah.
Young, like
So
brunette.
is Isabella Mercy. You know what? We'll work this out.
It's one of those.
Keep
But
talking, Chris.
but
I'll
in any
keep
way,
digging.
in any case, the opportunity for conversation here is, so how do you know? How do you know you have introduced a character enough, hero or villain? How do you know you have serviced a character that you've already gotten your audience invested in? How do you serve it, their end, their exit? How do you know, Alex Simmons?
You know, how do you know? Be with us next week for, okay. Yeah, whenever I talk with my students or with any of my consulting clients, it's always about, A, what are you trying to say through this story? What's the theme you're exploring? What's the message you're trying to share? What's the question you've asked yourself through this story and the answer that you're striving for? So there's that. Then, who are these characters deeply? Who are these characters going through this? What's their arc? And how do they come out at the end of this? Because knowing what you're trying to say, knowing how you're trying to or how you wish to affect the audience by the end of the story, that's a point that you drive towards, that you aim for. Knowing how to get there authentically and dramatically or humorously, if you're doing a comedy, is reliant on you knowing your characters and how to live with them and how to create authenticity within them so that the audience goes along on the ride. So if you're true to the message you're trying to tell or the theme you're trying to explore, and you're authentic with your characters, it's not just you pontificating, it's your characters living and breathing this scenario.
Right.
Then answers begin to reveal themselves, whether you're comfortable with those answers or not.
Right.
And at some point, you may even find yourself going, I think I'm going to have to change where the plot was originally going because my character this or my character that, and it's not going to work. It doesn't feel right. So you may go in those directions. Once you have hit your mark with the story you want to tell and you put it out there, then the other way you find out whether or not did it work. Like maybe you think it works, maybe you feel good about it, but did it work is by the reaction of your audience.
In the case of these two shows or stories, because they were in different formats, in both cases, the character of Glenn in Walking Dead and the character of Joel were proven by the audience to be very popular. Okay, both were breakthrough performances for the actors who fulfill them and put them on a higher level of career arc or whatever. What I'm saying to you is, what are our responsibilities? For example, if you were writing a blackjack story with Red in it, right? Red has been in a bunch of blackjack stories, and we know who Red is, right? If you've read people out
If
here,
you've read Red,
the
yes.
if you've read the Blackjack stories, Blackjack is noble but slightly intolerant of jerks, right? And Red is faithful, little mercenary, jerk, right?
Yeah.
So there has been, matter of fact, there's a scene, there's a piece in, I have it right in front of me, but it was in the, here it is. Nope, that's not the one. I think it was called Red,
Yes, the short piece, the
a
short
short
story.
piece called
Yeah.
Red, where Blackjack and Red had to confront each other about a certain set of values or lack thereof. Even that story built on the relationship, built the relationship further, extended our understanding and the living, breathing experience of readers to Blackjack's life, to Red's life. So I don't think in your worst writing day, you would have a Blackjack story going on where there's, say, a shootout, a confrontation, some mayhem and madness, which occurs pretty
Yeah.
often
Some of
in
the stories,
Blackjack
yeah.
stories.
Yeah.
It is adventure stories. What are you going to do,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And then I could not conceive if you allowed some person from behind a bush to kill Red and just leave it and not so.
You mean Orpheus getting his throat cut?
Well, that was not done by you.
No,
That
it
was done
wasn't.
by somebody else because person in charge didn't want that character anymore. We here at Tell the Damn Story have an official take on that. That guy was an asshole and he was wrong. And if I remember correctly, he's not with that company anymore. I
No,
don't even know
he's
if he's
not.
in the profession, but not because of Orpheus, sadly, but and because it's comics, Orpheus can come back next week if DC so
Yeah,
decides.
so decides, yes.
Yeah, but yeah, because that wasn't authentic and organic to the character's arc. Unless the entire story was about the randomness of death in this world and how even the best person might suffer random death, then that's what that story is. But neither of these stories were about that. In hindsight, Glenn does set up Dean's character as being vicious and heartless. It's a horrible sacrifice to make for that. And it did shock everybody because this guy was shockingly bad. It's like in deporting innocent people to an El Salvadorian prison. It's just shockingly bad. And
And
makes
somebody's
you
done it, yes.
makes you
But
rethink how you see that world. But here we have an opportunity because this comes out on Sunday. So if we're putting this out hours before season 2, episode 3, we as a group, as a family, viewers and us, have an opportunity to see what they do to justify this. Are they going to short sell us, all of us who invested in Joel, or are there going to be flashbacks? Is Ellie going to be haunted and driven by this? Is that other girl going to have to suffer because of her impetuousness in killing this person who for 5 years she wanted to kill because he killed her dad, but who had just saved her life? Is there going to be any ramifications? Are we going to be able to see the toll of letting hate consume you? I don't know, but it's an opportunity.
I think this it is an opportunity, and I think we those who watch will get some sort of an answer, whether it's the one they want or not. I would take this opportunity just because of something you said to mention an incident that happened in one of my classrooms just this past week, and I'll be very brief with this. Several students were watching a scene from a particular movie, and we were discussing the story and how the characters evolved in that. And I asked them, how would you, because there was some remarks, I said, how would you have ended this? And several of the students came up with a similar answer. And it was always about there was a happy ending, or pretty much a happy ending to the film. They would have changed that. They would have made it this kind of brutal thing, or that tragic thing, or this sad thing, or this. And I said, okay, why? And to a person in their own voice, one after the other said, just because it would be cooler this way, or it would be this, or it would, it's just, I don't think that's how things work. I think this would be more fun. And I sat and I listened to them and I let them, and I said, all right, so let me see if I get this right. None of you would do that ending based on what you said because of what kind of a statement it makes for the character or what it asks within the story. You would do it because it would be cool, fun, look, what? Sensationalistic? And they looked at me like, what's wrong with that? And I said, you can do that. And then what I would ask you to think about is every film or every TV show you've ever watched where when the thing that you knew was going to happen happened, you went, oh, geez. Because that's formula. That's playing to the sensationalistic hype. And I think as writers, you need to ask yourself, what am I, and back, what was I trying to say with this story? And did I hit it?
Right.
And in this case, what were they trying to say with the story? And if you were going to change the ending, to change it because you think it would be cool to take somebody out or to have it end tragically,
Well,
you got to
yeah,
ask yourself about that. So
right.
I just brought that up to say that again, we don't know why, as you pointed out earlier, producers or whomever looked at the game or looked at the comics, looked at the reaction to that particular death and how people were really upset and walked away. We don't know if they went, oh, let's see if we can do that too.
Alex,
Or
well,
you do know?
one of the things that Last of Us is doing is if you sit through the credits, the producers and directors come on and give you a behind the scenes.
Oh, that's nice of them.
And they were all talking about, we really wanted to get to this. And your godson, has played the game, said there's other people in the town whose their story starts to develop. And these two, their stories really develop. To which I said, great. But to the producers and directors who said, we wanted to get to this part of the story, and to the people who said, these other things will come up, what I'm saying is, you already, and this is only in my heart and soul, right? And if I'm wrong, it's a great opportunity to say, you ass, you jerk, get off the show. It's a sacred bond. You know how often I say serve the story. To me, the bond between creator and audience is sacred, is spiritual. So if I'm asking you, invest in Joel as a character worthy of your time. Inherent in that request, for me, is that his journey will be worth your time. It is one of the mortal sins of creators to ask something of an audience and then shortchange that audience. And any argument that the producers or the fans made, my response was, does it serve? They said, we wanted to show how hard it was to get through the winter. Spend a couple episodes. We wanted to show how much of a challenge it was to have these hordes. Spend a couple episodes. We know that this eventually becomes about Ellie and whoever that girl is. Okay. But why did all of those things have to be introduced the second episode? We also have all these people in town that develop them. Because what you had was Joel, a character they had invested in. They had invested so far in two characters, Joel and Ellie. Those are the people who survived from the first season. They were introduced to this town. Joel's brother Tom is in this town. Great. I want to know more about Tom. I want to know more about his wife. I want to know more about these other characters we've seen. If you want me to start following them, it has to be a handoff. If you're doing a relay race, you don't throw it at the next runner. You make sure it's there so we know who to follow, right? That's my argument, is that as writers ourselves, we have to make sure that we are delivering what we've promised to the audience. I'm not sure yet. I know I have certain feelings about Walking Dead that Robert Kirkman does not share, and that's great because that's his property, not mine. Last of Us, I don't know where it's going to go. And the only point I'm making is there were a lot of opportunities that this decision, you don't have those opportunities anymore. You have a bunch more, but you've reduced the other lead, Pedro Pascal's character, Joel. You've reduced him to a footnote in the second episode of the second season. Now you have a responsibility, and it's heavier lifting because of the way they did it. You have a responsibility to make that death mean something to Ellie, and perhaps this, for now, villain character, this other girl, could be great storytelling.
Is the character's name Eve?
Maybe. I just don't know enough, because sometimes people say, pass me the salt, Eve.
Yeah.
Good morning, Eve. How are you, Eve? And then you get to know, oh, that's Eve. It didn't stay with me, which
Gotcha.
again is an indication to me that more development could have been helpful. However, we get to watch now, if we're so interested, and see, are they making this decision pay off? Because every single one of us as storytellers have to serve that story. And ultimately, the audience is going to decide whether it was served well or not. And one of the reasons why The Walking Dead eventually ended was people said, nah, I don't trust the storytellers anymore. Now these guys, shockingly, have put themselves in the same position. So get me to popcorn. I want to see what happened. But if we have people out there that are writing their stories now, I'm hoping that this episode gives them an opportunity to say, okay, am I doing right by these? One, by myself as an author and my goals, but right by the audience. That is, I ask them to invest in these characters. Am I paying off their investment so they don't feel cheated? And now I'm not saying that no one can die, but I also believe that I always call it the Joss Whedon, someone has to die for the stakes to be real trope. I think that has run its course, and now it's gone from trope to cliche. And I think we have to be more creative about that now. There used to be a trope where you could, it was that guy in the rubber mask. Damn, I would have got away with it if not for those pesky kids.
Oh, yeah.
Try that today, and it's not going to fly. You have to do something more. You have to freshen it up. Last of Us has taken a authorial risk, a storytelling risk, and we'll see whether it pays off or not. But for those of you who are writing, hopefully this is an opportunity for you to embed in yourself. All right. Am I being true to my characters? Am I being true to my audience? Alex,
Yes, I'm here.
that's the point I wanted to make for this episode. Because I think it's inherent in the responsibility of the storyteller to tell the damn story. I'm from the Bronx and therefore strong opinions. And I hate the Hollywood guys who just come in and say, I'm just going to say this so that I can say that's what I did. There's that great story about Harvey Weinstein, who is not someone we'd say great stories about, but he kept calling up Peter Jackson, supposedly, when he was filming the Lord of the Rings trilogy, saying, hey, it's 4 hobbits. That's a lot of hobbits. You don't need all 4 of those hobbits. Kill one of those hobbits. I want you to kill one of the hobbits. And Jackson, to his credit, was really just, we're working on it right now, and ignore it, because the story was how these little ill-equipped people survived, right? There's also the story, I forget the producer's name, Jerry Bruckheimer, I think, who talked to Kevin Smith when he hired Kevin Smith to write the script for Superman Lives, which was the death of Superman.
The death
Right?
of
Sorry, the death of Superman.
Yeah.
And he kept saying to Kevin Smith, you know what scares people? Spiders. They want Superman to fight a giant spider. And since that wasn't any part of the story, it didn't fit organically. So Smith never did it. And the story and movie never got made. He got fired, all that bullshit. But a couple of years later, that giant spider showed up in Wild Wild West with Will Smith.
Barry Sonnenfeld.
Okay. If that's him, sorry, Bruckheimer. But
Barry
my point
Sonnenfeld,
is,
yes.
he
Yeah.
didn't really care where it went. He just wanted to see a big giant spider on screen. So that's inorganic. That's just sticking your finger in the pie. I believe in making the best pure pie possible.
For saying those P alliterations 5 times fast. Yeah.
For what it's worth.
Yes. Thank you, everybody, for staying with us. And I really hope that what Chris is trying to share with you comes through. If you have questions about how you can begin to maybe figure out if you're serving the story and things like that, listen to all of our other episodes. Or at
Yes,
least
that'll take care of it.
Yeah, that'll take care. That'll answer any of 360 questions. But also drop us a line, put a question in the comment section, and we'll be happy to respond to it. And as Chris is often saying, whenever we're coming to the close of an episode, what do you guys tend to ask, Chris?
Do you want mail on that?
Yes.
No, wait, that's not the question. Listen, if you found this interesting, do us a favor. Hit subscribe. If you really loved it, buy Alex a cup of coffee. It's down there somewhere. And stay around. Keep coming back and tell us what you need us to talk about to help you tell your damn story.
Yes.
And then tune in Sunday night and see how they're telling their damn story.
Yeah, absolutely. And over the next coming weeks, we'll have a few other authors in here to help tell theirs. So,
Everybody, tell your damn story.
Take care, everybody. Bye, Chris.
Peace. Thanks. See ya.